Hey, and welcome back to Pokemon Breaks. Today, we have another Starting Your Collection video where I endeavor to answer your questions about how to begin and build your own Pokemon collection. Today, I'm going to be answering some questions about how to identify and avoid fake or counterfeit Pokemon cards and products. If you're interested, please stay tuned. If you enjoy this video, it would mean the absolute world to me if you leave it a like, and if you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe to the channel. It means a lot and it makes a really big difference. Fake Pokemon cards and products have been around since the very beginning. This isn't anything new, but it is important for people to be aware of that the number and sophistication of counterfeit items has really increased over recent years, and that's likely owing to the increased hype around the hobby. In November of 2021, as one example, 7.6 tons of fake Pokemon cards were seized, leaving the shores of Shanghai, China. If 7.6 tons have been seized and addressed, imagine how much actually got out into the market. It's obviously important for collectors and players alike to make sure that they avoid buying fakes. You don't want to get scammed, and it's a clear violation of Pokemon Company's trademark, so the fake products really aren't worth anything on the open market. We are lucky that many of the fake products are targeted towards perhaps younger people or people that don't know much about the hobby, so a lot of the items can be easier to pick up, but unfortunately there are some really good fakes getting out there now that can be much harder to identify. I'm going to talk about my tips and tricks that I've used to identify fake products in the past. If you have any other ideas that might help the community, please leave them down in the comments below. I'd love this to be a space where we can help each other to build our own collections. My number one tip is to think critically when you're shopping for Pokemon products. If a deal that you found sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Some of the things that can be really good to be mindful of are, what are the market values for the products that you're looking for? So if you're looking at, for example, a Cosmic Eclipse booster box that's selling for 120 Australian dollars, you can be pretty confident that that is artificial, because if it was real, so many people would have jumped on it already. I'd also recommend that you're very careful about who you choose to shop from. So buy your Pokemon cards and your Pokemon products from reputable dealers. That could be things like big box stores, whether it's Kmart, Target, Big W. It could be local game shops, things like EB or Good Games. If you have small game stores in your local community, I'd really encourage you to support them whenever you can. I have some great Australian retailers that I like to use and I trust. And if you can build some relationships with local sellers, they'll often keep you in the loop when new products come out, especially if they're exclusive. You might get first dibs. You might also be able to get some good deals if you can build some relationships with people that are local. So I do believe it's really important not to just look for the best deal that you can find, but to think about what local businesses you can support, because quite often they will be happy to pay that forward to you and help you out when you're looking for something that might be more challenging to find. If you're shopping online, some of the things I would recommend would be using secondary review sites like Trustpilot to see if the site that you're shopping from is legitimate. That can give you a really good indication if the site is potentially just a credit card scam and not going to send you anything at all. But you can also find some good reviews that might indicate if the physical products are being sent out, if they're legitimate or not. When you're looking at products online, look at as many photos as you can, and be mindful if all of the photos on the website, particularly if it's a smaller website, are stock photos. That is something that can be questionable, and you never know if they actually have the product in store. Using things like Trustpilot, looking at reviews from external sources is really important in terms of buyer protection. Also seeing if the customer service and interaction is good on the website, particularly if it's a smaller site and doesn't have a lot of sales. It's also a really good idea to be mindful of where your online retailers are shipping from. So one example to bear in mind is that English Pokemon products are manufactured in the US and Japanese Pokemon products are manufactured in Japan. So if you're buying one of those lines of items and it's shipping from anywhere else, It's a really good question to ask yourself about why that might be, and that can be a good indication of whether or not it might be an artificial product. I like to use Facebook reviews for smaller sellers. An important thing to note is that on Facebook reviews, you can't actually delete reviews once you've opened it up. So if there are negative reviews left, they're just going to be out there for the world to see, and you can get a good indication if it's a legitimate seller or not. If you're buying from places like Facebook Marketplace, again, I would be very cautious. Make sure that you're interacting with people within a group and try to get reviews or references for the person that you're buying from, particularly if you're spending a large amount of money. If you're buying off of websites like eBay, make good use of the review function. Have a look at how many sales that shop has had, what are their reviews like, and see how many stars they have in general. Have a read through some of the reviews and see what other customers think about the products that they've been sent. Using our community is a really good way to find out if you're buying legitimate products or not. If you're in a physical store and you're looking at a booster box or an elite trainer box, for example, and you're trying to figure out if it's real, some of the things to think about would again be that fair market value. Is it underpriced? Think about where it might have come from. So particularly if you're looking at somewhere like a garage sale or a flea market, I would be very skeptical about the legitimacy of Pokemon products. You need to be really careful about buying from places like that because there's often no buyer protection and there's no way to get your money back if it does turn out to be fake. In Australia, at least, I know there are some dollar stores and places like gas stations that sell fake Pokemon products. So looking really carefully at the packaging is really important. If you're looking at the outer packaging of a Pokemon product, some of the things to be mindful of are the wrapping. So any booster box is going to be in that lightweight cellophane that should have the Pokemon logo printed all over it. An Elite Trainer box is going to be, again, wrapped in plastic that has the small holes throughout. So those are things to be mindful of. Thinking about the coloring of the product, particularly if you've seen a real box in the past, you should know what the print colors look like. Be mindful of things like font and look out for spelling mistakes. A lot of artificial Pokemon products have spelling or grammatical mistakes that the Pokemon company just wouldn't make. The other thing to look out for on sealed products is things like the print quality and the font that they use. If you read the outer packaging really carefully, you may notice some inconsistencies that will set off alarm bells and help you realize that it's not a legitimate product. The size and weight of legitimate Pokemon products is relatively consistent. So if you've held legitimate booster boxes in the past and you're picking one up in a store and it doesn't feel right, I would say trust your gut and just be careful. Particularly if the price seems too good to be true, it probably is. If you're looking at individual booster packs in a store, being mindful of how full the packs feel. Many of the fake packs feel very light. They don't have as many cards in them as they should. There might be a lot of air around the cards, which is also a telltale sign of a fake. I typically don't buy single booster packs unless they're things like shoppers packs. So you can tell these are sealed. It's pretty obvious that this is Pokemon labeling. And I picked this up from a big box store, so I know that it's a legitimate product. If you're looking at buying single Pokemon cards, starting with online, some things to look out for would be checking the number of photos and making sure that they're photos of the actual card that you're purchasing, particularly if it's a more expensive card. Quite often on eBay, one of the things that I see is someone might list, say, 100 copies of a Gold Star Umbreon for sale, and they only have photos of one card. So not only do you not know if the card that you're going to get in the post is going to be real, you may also not get any indication about the quality of card that you receive. I'd really encourage you to buy from sellers that are willing to send you extra photos of the actual card that they're going to send you so that you can confirm there's no damage and it looks legitimate. Some of the other things to look out for, particularly on marketplaces like eBay or Yahoo Auctions, would be looking at the seller's reviews and sales history. I generally feel more comfortable buying from sellers that have already made a large volume of sales and they have good reviews. So they have a high number of stars, and reading through the reviews, there aren't any big concerns raised about the legitimacy of products or things like packaging or shipping. So those are other things to be mindful of when you're buying online. Outside of auction websites, there are a number of other online retailers you can buy singles from. So places like TCG Player are very safe and they provide guarantees about the legitimacy of cards that you're buying from them. So that's a very safe way to buy cards. If you're ever buying from Facebook Marketplace or individual sellers that you've met through places like Instagram, I really encourage you to use PayPal and avoid friends and family payments. And that's because you actually have a little bit of buyer protection if you pay that additional fee that covers you just in case the deal falls through or perhaps the cards that you're sent are not real. My personal preference when I'm buying from people in Facebook or Instagram groups is, particularly if I'm spending a fair amount of money, to get some references. And there's nothing wrong with asking for references, especially if you're going to drop a relatively large amount of money. You can ask for references and you might be able to get some other people to get in touch with you and let you know what kind of deal that they've done with that person and that it went through okay. That can just give you that little bit of reassurance and peace of mind. If you're looking online at individual Pokemon cards, I would be asking for more photos. I would be really mindful of where the holo pattern is within the card and comparing it to either the real card if you have it in your possession or a scan of the real card. Sometimes in the fake cards, the artworks themselves are completely different. The colors from the Amazing Rare might be in the wrong place. You might find that borders are not holographic that should be, or it might be the other way around. So looking really carefully at photos and comparing to the real thing where you can be really useful. If you're making a big purchase or you have made a big purchase and are trying to figure out if you need to ask for your money back, relying on the community is also a really good standby. I have used the Pokemon group on Reddit a few times and asked for help to identify if cards that I've bought are real or fake, particularly if you're buying from eras where you didn't open many of the cards, so you're not that familiar with how they should look and feel. I'd really encourage you to do some of your own reading and look carefully at your legitimate cards in your own collection so that you have a really good feel and a good eye for what fakes might look and feel like. If you're looking at singles in a store, or perhaps you've already bought the single online and it's come to you and you're not sure if it's real, I'm going to give you a few tips to help you identify fake cards. And to do that, I'm going to use the help of some fake Pokemon cards that I actually found within my husband's own collection. So this is a legitimate Magmar from my husband's base set collection. So I'll give you a second to have a quick look at it. We'll look at the back and then we'll compare it to some artificial cards of this same exact artwork. One of the things that I have noticed with a number of fakes, particularly of these older cards, is they would make cards holographic that weren't holographic. You might also notice that the holo pattern is very different to what they used in this era of cards. And in a number of instances, the holo pattern is actually extending beyond the center of the artwork. Another key difference that you'll notice with this particular card is that the centering is way off. I will say that Pokemon cards are not always perfectly centered, so there are a number of misprints where cards might be top or bottom heavy like this. But this is one example of a card that is clearly a fake card, and you can see that it's pretty off-center. This one, interestingly, you can see that the text is pretty similar to the actual card. So the printing is quite similar. They've used, I think, the right font for the most part. The text is too small if you compare it to the legitimate card, so that would be quite difficult to read if you were actually trying to play the TCG. So it is too small. The other thing that you'll notice with fake cards is often that the back is not the right color. So with this card on the left, which is the fake card, you can see that it's actually quite purple, whereas the legitimate card has this nice royal blue sort of shade to it. You'll also notice that the texture on the fake card is not the same. So it's really shiny as compared to the real one, which is not completely shiny. It has a little bit of a matte finish to it. They feel completely different. This fake card feels really plasticky. Here's another example of a really obvious fake. So this Wartortle was never meant to be holographic, but the fake one clearly is. It's very shiny, and it has a holo that extends throughout the whole card, which is not something that they did in this era of Pokemon. Again, you can see it's way off center, and this one is actually a completely different size to the real Pokemon card. You can see it's much smaller. Many of the older fakes were actually too small. You can also see, again, that the coloring and the centering on the back is all wrong. This one has a really matte back, which is a very different texture again. The printing is way off center, and you can see there's a little bit of bleeding around the edge of that border. And the border is also not on center the way that the real Pokemon card is. So the sizing is all wrong. It's holographic where it shouldn't be, and it's not the right holo pattern. The colors are off. The text is actually very difficult to read on the fake card because they've made the coloring a bit too dark. This isn't a problem with this particular card, but another thing that you'll probably notice with many fake cards is that either the hit points or the damage done by Pokemon is way outside of what you would expect. So Pokemon that might have, 1,000 hit points, or these enormous attacks that just aren't real. Another thing that sometimes happens is the energy symbol is actually way too big for the circle that it's within in some of the fakes. The materials of these fake cards themselves feel very different to real cards. These ones are definitely thinner than a real card. They're much more bendy. And you can tell that they're really plasticky. They have a really obvious coating on them that doesn't feel like real Pokemon cards. You would be able to tell in a photo online if these were fakes, but for some of the more sophisticated ones, it can be more challenging. That's why it becomes really important to ask for more photos. I have two legitimate English and Japanese Pokemon cards to show you, and one way that you can see if a Pokemon card is real or not is by doing what's called the rip test. And the reason for that is authentic Pokemon cards have a number of layers of paper in them, and one of the layers is actually a different color. So if you tear the card in half, you're going to be able to see that different color layer, and that's going to give you a really obvious indicator if it's real or not. So you don't want to do this if you have a more expensive card that you don't want to risk ruining by ripping it in half. But if, for instance, you bought a booster pack and you weren't sure if the cards inside were real, you could test it on one of them, and that will give you a really reliable indicator. So with English, if we tear this card in half, you're going to see pretty clearly that there is a black layer of paper within that card. So if you were to shine a light through this card, there wouldn't be a lot of light that would go through it because you've got a pretty obvious black layer of paper that would block light. And if you weren't sure about the authenticity of your card, this is a really good way to tell, as long as you're willing to rip it in half, of course. If we look at the Japanese card, it's going to be a little bit different. The layer of paper inside this one is blue. So Japanese cards don't block quite as much light if you put a flashlight behind them, and you have a clear blue layer of paper to show you that that is an authentic card. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that that was useful. If you have any other tips or tricks for how to spot fakes, please leave them in the comments down below. I'd love this to be a space that we can help each other out. If you'd like to keep in touch with me, again, I am Pokemon Breaks on Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. It would mean the absolute world to me if you left me a follow. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to click like. And if you'd like to see more from me, I'd love it if you subscribed. Look after yourself, be careful out there, and I hope you have a great day. Until next time, I'll see you around. Bye.